One. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first community call for cloud application development in 2017. We hope you all had a great holiday. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. This is the U.S. Partner Cloud Application Development community call. This meeting will be recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. So if you do not agree to be on a recorded call, please drop off now. Today's call is all about media services, and we have a really special guest with us. Darren Shapiro is going to talk all things media services for the next 30 minutes, and then we're going to cover down on some programmatic updates from a partner perspective. So, without further ado, because Darren has a hard course, I'm going to turn it over to him and let him get started.
All right. Well, thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to be showing some slides here on our Azure Media Services, which is a comprehensive platform. Hang on a second, it's not showing my slides yet. Hey, Jonathan, as soon as you switch to your slides, mine disappeared. Should I just reshare?
Yeah, just go ahead and go to Manage Content on the deck, and you should be able to see your slides there. Yeah.
All right, sorry about that. Azure Media Services is part of our platform as a service offerings, and it's a end-to-end media ingest, process, and distribution platform. And just to give you an idea of where it sits within Azure as a whole, we've got the infrastructure as a service, which underlays all of our platform services, and on top of that is our platform services across the board. So within cloud application development, you have web and mobile and all the services that are in there. There's our data platform, analytics, compute, and so on and so forth. But the box in the middle here represents media and CDN. And I'm not intending for you to focus on all the little icons that are on the screen, but I just want you to see that this is, one set of components within a much larger ecosystem of our platform services. And everything you see on the screen has, in a sense, synergistic capabilities. So it's like building blocks or Lego blocks, if you will, that you build your castle with. And so to dive right in, I'm skipping over some of these compliance and scale slides because just in the past month since I grabbed these, some of these have been updated. But Azure, the global scale of Azure is quite significant, and compliance we cover we cover more compliant. We have more compliance than both of our major competitors, and in the recent past, we've included a couple new ones. Just jump forward. So, video is exploding in popularity. I think I've personally witnessed an inflection point with customers coming to us with requests for video across the spectrum. So no longer is it just the domain of content producers and movie studios. It is now being utilized across the board with corporate customers doing internal corporate training, sourcing video for learning management systems, and so forth. And it is estimated, I've heard a lot of different estimates, that by 2019 that video content will be 80% of the traffic on the internet. And I think it's a significant portion of the traffic on the internet now. And so that's where media services sits within the Microsoft Cloud. And when you look at what, let's skip over our customers, the typical media services customer has been, broadcasters and content producers and movie studios, but it's quickly getting into every other sort of industry. And those are partners. But what the detail that I really wanted to dive in here is the sort of pillars that make up Azure Media Services. And these boxes on the screen represent from the cloud and upload storage on the left all the way through to the box on the right, player clients. That's the whole pipeline from how you get content into the cloud, encode it, apply analytics, content protection, and so forth, and then finally distribute it throughout the world through our CDN and our player clients. So the first box, cloud upload and storage, there's multiple ways to get content into the cloud. It could be just something as simple as uploading a file through HTTP, and it also we also have partners that are capable of doing secure and fast upload into the cloud. So Aspera and Signiant are two that are heavily used. There's a few advantages to those, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with them, but aside from fast upload, they also provide security in transit as well as for premium content owners, which is where I would say their services are mostly used. The MPAA has audited and put their stamp of approval on those companies. But there's other options, and it really just depends on the velocity and volume of content that you'd be bringing into the cloud. And sometimes that might require an express route circuit from a corporate office or something along those lines. But you can send us, we have a whole list of formats that can be the source for content for video on demand, as well as accepting live streams. So if you have a telestream encoding setup and you want to take a live feed from an event that you're producing and send it to Azure to have that streamed out to the rest of the world, we support the typical streaming formats there, like RTMP and smooth streaming. And one thing to note that that Aspera, Signiant, as well as our own secure upload do address is we are ensuring the security of your content from the moment it leaves your location to all the way through to the end user viewing your content. So there's at every stage there's something to address security concerns. So encryption in transit, encryption at rest, DRM encryption, and so on and so forth. But I think probably the most intuitive aspect of Azure Media Services and category of features is our encoding. So you take a source video file. It could be in a raw format or near raw format, such as ProRes or something like XDCAM that production companies use or export from their edit bays. And so all of the different, we have a very, very wide support for input formats. And between our standard encoder and a premium encoder, which has additional features, the list of available, the list of supported codecs and packaging formats are listed, but it's very diverse. There's very few codecs that we don't support, although it's kind of a moving target. New codecs have been slowly making their way onto the market, and 4K has really been driving that. So H.265 HEVC content we do support now, and it is in a preview program. In order to have that support, I just want to caveat that the licensing landscape for H.265 is not as simple and clear-cut as previous codecs. So while Microsoft will transcode, support the codecs, the licensing of that codec is the responsibility of the customer. And it's as soon as anybody is to look into the licensing around that, you'll see that it's just a slightly different situation than MP4 and so forth. But the way that this occurs, so regardless of what your input format is and what your desired output format is, the Azure Media Services platform takes it allows you to define the job that says, for example, I've got this source high bitrate ProRes file. I want to encode it to a multi-bitrate MP4. And I'm going to use, this is my configuration setting because I want 5 different bit rates ranging from full HD to say 720 down to much lower bit rate files that are used as part of the adaptive streaming. So if a customer's got low bandwidth capabilities or maybe they're on a mobile device, you don't need to feed them as high of a bitrate file. But I'll go into the detail of that a little bit further because that's all actually automatic and handled by the player. And we also do have closed captioning support, which is important if you've got closed captioning files with your content. You can provide those because many times the closed captioning files that are produced as part of content production are very rich, and so all the standard formats that the industry uses can be provided with the input file, and it will be packaged as part of the file and fed through the player. We're going to talk in a few minutes about another option to generate those closed captionings through our indexing processor, which is basically a voice-to-text engine that will output the voice-to-text content, but it will also output that content with specific closed captioning file formats as well. And that's in the category of media analytics. So once you've encoded your file, and by the way, especially customers that have very large video libraries, sometimes we have entertainment companies that could have petabytes of content that they may have already encoded. It's not just existing in source or raw formats. We can also ingest pre-encoded content and just do the further downstream work, which is packaging, potentially protecting with encryption or DRM, and then the streaming that comes after that. So just want to make that clear that the encoding, we can do it, and it's a very rich feature, but if you've already done the encoding, you can just skip that step. But once it's encoded, then we have a rich set of media analytics that take the form, and I think we're in need of some branding exercises. It seems to cover so many different categories, but right here I'm specifically talking about what we call the Azure Media Analytics, and it's a set of processors that will operate on an audio or video file. And as I mentioned, the multi-language speech-to-text will allow you to automatically generate the closed caption files, as well as give you a set of metadata that you can use for other purposes. So I would say a very common scenario these days is if you run the speech-to-text media processor against a video, and sure, you can take those closed caption files and feed that through when somebody is viewing that content online, but you can also take that text and make it searchable through a service like Azure Search or something, could even be a SQL database or something like that. And people use that to have rich browsing and search experiences, so that when you search for, say, a key phrase that was spoken in a video, the link that you get back is correlated to the video. It's the video itself where that word was found, but also the time code. So it facilitates UIs where you search for a bit of text, you found where it was spoken in the video, and then you link directly into that video to the spot where it was spoken. Facial and emotion detection is another media processor, and it also includes facial redaction. So facial detection, the first step is just identifying where faces are found within a video. So it's at what time and at what location. The metadata that we create will allow you to sort of have the bounding area of the face. And sometimes there's different things that you might need to do with that. So facial redaction is used in certain scenarios where previously it took quite a bit of effort and time for editors to go through, find all the faces, and blur them out. But facial redaction can do that automatically, and we even have a tool that helps you decide which faces that you want to redact. So it runs through the process. It found these 5 different faces, and you could say redact these 4, but not this last one, and it'll go through and do that redaction. The other purpose of facial detection is the emotion detection, which I'm sure many of you have seen the demos, which it detects the face, and it also can tell you that the person looks happy, and it can also give you some estimated demographics. So 34-year-old female, for example. But one note as I'm going through this list is that all of these media processors, the they output different information, but they take the same approach to giving you that information. You specify when you set up a job to do encoding that you want to run these three processors, and then when they're done, the output is a JSON file with the metadata that is relevant to that particular processor. Motion detection, stabilization, and acceleration are pretty interesting. So motion detection it seems obvious where if a camera is pointed at a room and a person or a dog walks through, that should be detected as motion. But the processor is a little bit smarter than that, in that it doesn't create false positives by things like lighting changes. If you turn lights on and off or things like that, it will not. So when you do that shadows move, it realizes that that's not quite detection, as well as gives you some bounding boxes to choose the area. Stabilization and acceleration comes from our hyperlapse product that came out of research several years ago. And what that can do is you can take, think of a video of someone jogging along the beach, or maybe a mountain biker or something like that. Speeding, if you were to just speed it up, you would have a very jerky and somewhat hard to watch result. But when you apply stabilization and acceleration, it smooths it, over time and through movement. So it has a really nice effect. If anybody's heard of hyperlapse or is familiar with that, it is the logic and the behavior of hyperlapse built into our media processor. Object character and logo recognition object recognition, there's this taxonomy of, I think, about 86 different categories of objects that it can recognize in a video. So things like indoor, office, desk, woman, man, dog, those types of things are recognized. And the architecture for this is not just to be able to detect the handful of, and it's actually quite extensive. The very first time I was testing writing some code around this, I used the camera to pan around my office and look at what it was recognizing, and it found all the obvious things like, computer or laptop, window, indoors, plant, and then it said cluttered. So I thought, I was surprised that it had to get a little personal and judgmental on my office conditions. But the architectural model is that aside from everything that we can detect by the images that we've trained it on, it's also extensible. So this taxonomy first sort of categorizes what it finds in the images into the 86 different categories. And one of those categories might be outdoor buildings, for example. And you can extend that. So if you wanted to train our processor to be able to recognize specific buildings, you specify a domain-specific model that when it's doing its recognition, it then determines that there's a domain-specific model for the category that it decided, and then it can check against your model that you've trained across all of your images or something along those lines. So what that means is that the content that it can find, while fairly extensive now and growing pretty rapidly, it could also be a custom domain that your customer or company has trained specifically for your purposes. Character and logo recognitions are, think of a video where you're videoing a classroom where someone's writing on a board or is presenting a PowerPoint in the background or anything along those lines. It will detect that text in the video. It will convert it to, do OCR and convert it to text for you and specify when in the video it was found and exactly where on the screen it was found. And logo recognition is all about, picking up things like, specific famous logos or logos that you train it on yourself. And the purpose for that is a lot of times companies want to audit where their logos are showing up, or maybe they want to recognize where logos are showing up and blur those out as well. Now, video summarization is a way to create video thumbnails based off of, for a larger piece of content. So think maybe Netflix is a good example. When you're sort of clicking through Netflix movies, you see sort of a preview play. Well, if you look carefully, you'll notice some of them seem like they're automatically generated, so you'll have a bit of a soundtrack and just some interesting scenes, while others were the actual trailer that kind of tells the story that a trailer tries to tell. So if you have a very large library, this service can create very nice looking and it appears to be something that's somebody purposefully edited, but it's all automatic. So when you have large libraries and you want to create a rich browsing experience, that service will help you with that. And very important for scenarios where people have community content being uploaded. Adult content profanity detection and content moderation in general is a service that can help you flag content that may need to be excluded or maybe looked at further. The next bucket, and I'm going to speed up a little bit because I see the time. The next bucket of functionality is around content protection. So there's really two types of content protection. There's DRM, which allows you, it's digital rights management. It allows you to apply policies for when, how long, and who can watch your content. And then there's just basic encryption, where you want to make sure that only people that have logged into your system are able to watch this content, but there's no specific individual rights applied individually to each file. But for DRM, we support all the major players, and that's a real important aspect, that many other companies have built their own DRM solutions, but typically they don't have support for everything, and we do have support. So Microsoft, Google, and Apple's proprietary content protection mechanisms, we support that. We also, it's the full stack. So if you're using DRM, the player has to acquire a license, and we host that license server, and we can use your user logins or your user data store to authenticate users and say, okay, this person has rights to watch this video, so we'll generate the DRM license in Widevine because they're using a Google device, and give it to them. And all that stuff, all that happens automatically through the platform. So there, between live content and video on demand content, the service that does the processing, so the encoding media services, it's part of the Azure cloud. So it's very scalable. It parallelizes the job. So we've had massive media customers that brought massive libraries to us that in their on-premises world would have taken months to encode to a certain format. We can do that in a fraction of the time because of the scalability of our platform and how we can parallelize that. But from the on the live side, we also have the ability to encode or pass it through, because say someone's producing a type of event where they're filming their CEO talk to the company. A lot of people have encoders on their laptops, so they're doing the encoding and they just want to send it through our platform to then be distributed out to users. We can accept that live stream and just pass it through, and then apply DRM or dynamic packaging and so forth to stream it, or we could do the encoding ourselves. So take a single bitrate file that's being given to us from a from a camera, and encode that into 4 or 5 different bit rates to support the adaptive streaming that goes from there. And the way that massive scale is achieved, the way that we were able to handle the Olympics, is that the content is live or video on demand content, regardless of the format or package or the client application that's viewing it. It's compliant and works with the CDN, so we're able to feed that content out, through the edge locations throughout the world and achieve massive scale. The Olympics had, the numbers on the Olympics are staggering in terms of the volume of streaming content that went out, as well as the number of concurrent users. And so all the way to the other end, after, so how people consume the video that's hosted in Azure Media Services, we have our own Azure Media Player, and the Azure Media Player, it's a JavaScript-based player, as well as it does have fallback for Flash and Silverlight, but it's free. It's also extensible through a plugin model, and it basically does all of the negotiation for the device that it's running on. So whether it's an iOS device or a Windows laptop, it will negotiate with the Azure Media Services to retrieve the stream that's of the right format, of the right DRM protection scheme, as well as in real time adapting to the network conditions to request the appropriate bitrate stream. And so if you watch a video, it could be slightly, varying in terms of bitrate to accommodate the network conditions. So all of that behavior is handled through our player, and our player can only view content it can only be used with Azure Media Services, but any customer can use any other player that they want as well. There's several other players on the market that are very popular, JW Player, for example. Those can also be used to view content from Azure Media Services. So just a quick note about how we can achieve massive scale worldwide and still give end users throughout the world the same experience as if they were located very close to the, say, source data center. There's been studies on what effect it has when there's even a tenth of a second delay. So as you can see, you don't want to have stream buffering or delays when someone requests to start the stream, because it ultimately will cause some users to leave. And again, that's enabled through the CDN. And Azure, what we call Azure CDN is it's a multi-CDN service where we've integrated Akamai and Verizon networks into our service. So you can provision either of those CDNs through our portal, and I think most advantageously, it's also part of your Azure spend or commit. You don't need another contract or commit with those companies, and you can turn them on and off at will through our portal. So just a quick time check. I want to make sure, see if we have any questions from the audience.
No. Sorry, I was talking to a muted microphone. No, we're good on questions at this point.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, if we don't have any questions, I would love to take any questions that might develop afterwards. So through Jonathan or Colleen, I'd be happy to have any conversations that arise out of this. But I think with that, I will turn this over to Colleen.
Thank you, Darren. We appreciate you coming on. And any questions that you guys may develop out of this, if you'll post them in the Yammer group, I'll give the link to that at the end. I'll make sure Darren sees those, and we can get those. Thank you so much for your time, Darren. We really appreciate you on the call. I know you had a time constraint. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. See you, everybody.
With that, Colleen, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. Hello, everybody. My name is Colleen Kosmaria, and I am here in the U.S. sub working in our cloud and enterprise team, and I focus on our Visual Studio SMSMB partner and the entire segment. So I wanted to jump on this call and thank you, Jonathan, for inviting us. We are here in the Visual Studio world. We are looking to do an aggressive growth in FY17, and in our effort to do so, we built a program that's very specific for our DevOps Gold and Silver partners, and it goes through a program called the Partner Investment Engine, PI, which I hope you are all very familiar with. And if you're not, please put a note in the window there, and we can send out a link to the PI portal. So the PI portal allows you as partners to get the traditional MDF funding, so the marketing development funding, to run different sorts of activities to help us generate new customers, new workloads, etc. So what you're looking at here on our slide is two opportunities that we currently have available for our partners. There's a program called Visual Studio Everywhere, which has two components to it, of workshops as well as a proof of value, which is the POV. And then I'm also going to just briefly remind everybody about the Cloud App Dev Jumpstarts, and that is you can find that information through your FT connections, or you can give us a call here, Jonathan, one of the PDU teams, or or to my alias as well, and we can get you connected. And so both of these programs provide funds for different workloads that you as a partner could execute in your environment, either with a customer or in our MPCs. And I am going to jump to the next slide to give you an overview on our Visual Studio Everywhere program. So we, again, have come to a point in with our Visual Studio licensing that we are looking to get net new customers. And so how do we want to do that? Well, we love our partners, and so we want to scale through you. And what we have as an offer to you to help us do that is $3,000 in a workshop. And the workshop is intended as a one-to-many. So one-to-many being many different customers, not from the same company. The proof of value, I will talk about that in just a moment, which is a similar sort of thing that you could do if you have one customer and you want to do a single event of teaching them and sharing your solutions with them. We could do that. I'll talk about that in the proof of value. So if we go back to the workshop is a one-to-many. We have 4 pillars of content, and we'll run through that in just a minute, that we have available for you to utilize. It's hands-on labs around mobile, cloud, DevOps, and productivity. And again, you can use your own DevOps solutions and consume these funds to run your own workshops. So we're looking, I'll jump to the consumption rate that we're looking to have these workshop engagements lead to. So we're looking for at least 2 customers to be generated, net new customers, to be generated from the workshops who have an opportunity of $30,000 in either Visual Studio or Azure consumption. And that would mean you, as the partner, are submitting their names and their opportunity post the workshop to Partner Connect, or you are providing names and contact information in your proof of execution through the Pi portal. And for that workshop engagement, we offer you $3,000. And then the next component is going to be the proof of value. And I'm going to skip to the next slide just to try to help with some of the clarity on the separation of the two. So again, it's 4 common tracks, and we add the 5th one being whatever the partner has as their specialty. So you can, again, drive your own content that you're already using. The workshop, again, $3,000, one to many different types of customers, at least 2 $3,000 consumption opportunities coming out of that workshop for your proof of execution. And for the proof of value, this is a very open draw for. One ideal situation would be if you have a workshop that's happening with a number of net new customers, and some of those customers provide questions about, oh, I have this problem, and I'd love to just do a hack fest. Would you guys be able to help me out? Well, the proof of value then allows the partner to do a one-on-one engagement with that customer at the customer site for $2,000. So we help to compensate the time of the personnel who are headed over to the customer. And the proof of value does not have to be specific to your workshop community. So if you had 50 customers come to a workshop, and but you have other customers who are pretty new, but they have different questions about Visual Studio, and you want to be able to provide them some technical expertise that are in your spectrum, then you can consume the proof of value $2,000 for that. For the opportunity or the leads that we would like from that, we have about 13 questions in an Excel, as well as that's going to ask you as the partner to dig into a little bit deeper as to what that customer's cloud scenarios, cloud strategy is, what the base of their developer environment is, and questions like that. So you answer about 75% of those questions, and then provide that customer, again, locking them in as a Partner Connect opportunity for about $30,000, and then you'll have your $2,000 for consumption. So I'm just going to rehash this one more time. If there's any questions, again, please put them in the window or the text window, and So workshops, one to many. Net new is our goal. 2 opportunities to come out at least, the customers are at least committing or considering a 30,000 consumption in Azure and or Visual Studio. And then the proof of value, $3,000. It's a one-on-one technical engagement. It could be a whiteboarding. It could be a hack fest. It could be, or a hackathon. It could be a proof of concept, a very lightweight sort of proof of concept because we're just looking at it to be maybe 1 to 2 days. And that 30,000 in consumption over the next year. Oops. And let's see if we go to the next slide. So the next slide is and you'll be able to pull this deck from here. I think Jonathan's going to send it back out. So this is expands to how our cloud and enterprise team has a number of different everywhere programs available to you, Azure Everywhere, EMS Everywhere, and the data platform everywhere, and it gives a little bit of a description and how you'd be able to submit to that. All of these programs, again, are available in the partner investment engine, and I hope that you guys will be able to take a moment to discover the benefits that we have in that program for you. And just as a final heads up, this last half we already completed 22 workshops and 12 proof of value one-on-one engagements through our customers or through our partners, and it yields some really great results. We have a lot of feedback from partners who said that doing a net new demand gen, using that $3,000 in that workshop for social media to get net new customers or to buy customer lists really, really helped them in being able to pick up some new opportunities. And I would, there's a good percentage of the partners' feedback so far that have said of the workshops, how many POVs they were able to pull out of that. So I would say qualified interested customers has been very, very strong. So again, I encourage you to check out Pi, check out Visual Studio Everywhere. If you have any questions, you can write through Pi or you can send questions in the window. And if Jonathan wants to share our aliases at the end, that would be great.
Sure. So there are a couple questions. One looking for a link to Partner Connect, but the other is really about similar programs in other regions. Who would you advise people interested in looking for programs that may be running in EMEA or other locations? Who would you advise them to reach out to?
So we'll have to send that up to, I think, with Javier for Visual Studio Everywhere, or is the question specifically around any of the Pi programs? Because Pi right now is only in the U.S.
Okay, so Pi is only in the U.S., but other programs may be available in other regions, and so they'd probably want to reach out to Javier. Is that what you said?
I think Javier is probably the right person, or what do you think, Rodrigo? Or the PSE, yeah, or their local PSE.
Okay.
Or PSE, yeah.
So if you have that, if that's your question, reach out to us on Yammer, and I'll provide the links here in a little bit, and we'll make sure you get connected there. We did have somebody else ask. One of the slides had cloud application development jumpstarts. Do they fall under Azure Everywhere, or is it a separate program?
Azure Everywhere is considered a separate program from the Cloud Jumpstarts.
Cool. All right. So those are the questions that we have.
Excellent. And for all of the Azure Everywhere, for all of these programs, it is very key to get your submissions in early and working through your PSEs or PDPs to get submissions in early. Making sure that you're aware that funding, as it always does, funding kind of gets slower and slower towards the second half of the year, so we want to make sure that we've got things consumed and lined up.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, of course. With that, I'll do what I promised before and show the links for getting connected. So on the screen, you'll see we do this community call. Obviously, share that with any of your colleagues that you'd love to get on. I think next month we're slated to start talking about the Visual Studio Mobile Development Center. So if you're doing mobile development or you have friends interested in Xamarin or what we have to offer in that space, we'd love to have you on the call. You'll certainly see blog posts where that will be kind of be reflected as well. So follow us on our blog. Check out the Yammer group that we mentioned earlier. There's the link on the screen, but it's AKAMS US App Dev Yammer. You can get joined in the conversation there. Reach out to us with any of your further questions. If you have questions for Darren or Colleen or myself, just reach out to us there. We'll make sure you get taken care of. So with that, we are going to close out. We do have some survey questions here at the end. If you would please stick around and answer those. They help us shape the content. It isn't a huge part of reviews, so please give us constructive feedback, what you'd like to see, what you're interested in, more technical content. If you want to go into other areas around development, please let us know, and we'll collect those back up and try and shape these calls for you guys to make them as valuable as possible. So with that, we really appreciate it, and you should see the recording of this available through the Yammer group as well as soon as it's ready. Thanks, and have a great week.